Hank. I brought my friend Ginger today. So the last time we left off, James had this great idea to use all of the seagulls to lift the Peach up out of the ocean away from the sharks. In a flash, everybody was on top. "Oh, isn't it beautiful?" they cried. "What a marvelous feeling. Goodbye, sharks." Miss Spider, who was literally squealing with excitement, grabbed the centipede by the waist, and the two of them started dancing around and around the peach stem together. The earthworm stood up on his tail and did a sort of wriggle of joy all by himself. The old green grasshopper kept hopping higher and higher in the air. The ladybug rushed over to James and shook him warmly by the hand. And the glowworm, who at the best of times was very shy and silent, sat glowing with pleasure. Even the silkworm, looking white and thin and completely exhausted, came creeping out of the tunnel to watch this miraculous event. Up, up and away they went, and soon they were as high as the top of a church steeple above the ocean. "I'm a bit worried about the Peach," James said to the others. "I wonder how much damage the sharks did to it." "It's impossible to tell from standing on top." But then Miss Spider spoke up. "Why don't I go over the side and make an inspection? It'll be no trouble at all, I assure you." The others crowded anxiously around. "Wouldn't it be dreadful if she fell?" "Are you all right, Mrs. Spider?" "Yes, thank you. I'm coming up now." And up she came, climbing foot over foot up the silk thread, and at the same time tucking the thread back cleverly into her body. "Is it awful?" they asked. "Is it all eaten away? Are there great holes everywhere?" Miss Spider clambered back onto the deck with a rather puzzled look on her face. "You won't believe this," she said, "but actually there's hardly any damage down there at all. The Peach is almost untouched. There are just a few tiny pieces out here and there." "You must be mistaken," James said. "I promise you I'm not." "But there were hundreds of sharks around us. We saw their great mouths opening and shutting." "I don't care what you saw," Miss Spider answered. "They certainly didn't do much damage to the Peach." "Then why did we start sinking?" "Perhaps we didn't start sinking. Perhaps we were all so frightened we simply imagined it." This, in point of fact, was closer to the truth than any of them knew. A shark, you see, has an extremely long, sharp nose, and its mouth is set very awkwardly underneath its face and a long way back. This makes it more or less impossible for it to get its teeth into a vast, smooth, curving surface, such as the side of a peach. Even if the creature turns onto its back, it still can't do it because the nose always gets in the way. If you have ever seen a small dog trying to get its teeth into an enormous ball, then you will be able to imagine roughly how it was with the sharks and the Peach. "It must have been some kind of magic," the ladybug said. "The holes must have healed up by themselves." "Oh, look! There's a ship below us!" shouted James. Everybody rushed to the side and peered over. None of them had ever seen a ship before. "It looks like a big one. It's got 3 funnels. You can even see the people on the decks. Let's wave to them." Do you think they can see us?" Neither James nor any of the others knew it, but the ship was now passing beneath them. It was actually the Queen Mary sailing out of the English Channel on her way to America. And on the bridge of the Queen Mary, the astonished captain was standing with a group of his officers, all of them gaping up at the great round ball hovering overhead. So there's a bridge that goes over water, and then there's a bridge like the captain's area. The captain's looking up and says, "I don't like it." "Nor do I," said the first officer. "Do you think it's following us?" "I tell you I don't like it. It could be dangerous." "That's it," cried the captain. "It's a secret weapon." "Holy cats! Send a message to the Queen. The country must be warned. Give me a telescope." The captain put the telescope to his eye. "There's birds everywhere. The whole sky is teeming with birds. What in the world are they doing? And wait a second. There are people on it. I can see them moving. Do I have this thing focused right? It looks like a little boy." "Yes, thank you. I can distinctly see a little boy in short trousers standing up there, and there's a giant ladybug and a giant green grasshopper." "Oh, Captain, please," the first officer said in disbelief. "And there's a mammoth spider, I swear." "Call the ship's doctor," the first officer said. "Our captain is not well." But a moment later, the great round ball disappeared into a cloud, and the people on the ship never saw it again. But up on the Peach, everyone was still happy and excited. "I wonder where we'll finish up this time," the earthworm said. "Who cares?" they answered. "Seagulls always go back to the land sooner or later." Up, up, up they went, high above the highest clouds, the Peach swaying gently from side to side as it floated along. "Wouldn't this be a perfect time for a little music?" the ladybug asked. "How about it, old grasshopper?" "With pleasure, dear lady," the old green grasshopper answered, bowing from the waist. "Oh, hooray! He's going to play for us," they cried, and immediately the whole company sat themselves down in a circle around the old green musician. And then the concert began. From the moment that the first note was struck, the audience became completely spellbound. And as for James, never had he heard such beautiful music. In the garden at home on summer evenings, he had listened many times to the sound of the grasshoppers chirping in the grass, and he always liked the noise that they made, but this was different. This was real music, chords and harmonies and tunes. And what a wonderful instrument the old green grasshopper was playing on. It was the violin. Or it was like a violin. The bow of the violin, the part that moved, was his back leg. The strings of the violin, the part that made the sound, was the edge of his wing. He was using only the top of his back leg, and he was stroking this up and down against the edge of his wing with incredible skill. Sometimes slowly, sometimes fast, but always with the easy flowing action. It was precisely the way a clever violinist would have used his bow. When the first part was finished, everyone clapped madly, and Miss Spider stood up and shouted, "Bravo! Bravo! Encore! Give us some more!" Did you like that, James? The old green grasshopper asked. Oh, I loved it. It was beautiful. Do all grasshoppers play their music on violins the same way you do? No, not all. If you want to know, I happen to be a short-horned grasshopper. I have two short feelers coming out of my head. They're quite short, aren't they? That's why they call me a short-horned grasshopper. And we shorthorns are the only ones who play our music in the violin style. My longhorned relatives, the ones who have long, curvy feelers coming out of their heads, make their music simply by rubbing the edges of their two top wings together. They are not violinists. They are wing rubbers. And rather inferior noise these wing rubbers produce, if I may say so. It sounds more like a banjo than a fiddle. How fascinating this all is, cried James. And to think that up until now I had never even wondered how a grasshopper made his sounds. My dear young fellow, the old grasshopper said gently, there are a whole lot of things in this world of ours that you haven't started wondering about yet. Where, for example, do you think I keep my ears? Your ears? Why, in your head, of course. Everyone burst out laughing. You mean you don't even know that? Cried the centipede. Try again, said the old green grasshopper, smiling at James. You can't possibly keep them anywhere else. Oh, can't I? Well, I give up. Where do you keep them? Right here, the old green grasshopper said. One on each side of my tummy. It's not true. Of course it's true. What's so peculiar about that? You ought to see where my cousins, the crickets, and the katydids keep theirs. Well, where do they keep them? In their legs. One in each front leg, just below the knee. You mean you didn't know that either? The centipede said scornfully. You're joking, said James. Nobody could possibly have his ears in his legs. Why not? Because it's ridiculous, that's why. You know what I think is ridiculous, the centipede said, grinning. I don't mean to be rude, but I think it's ridiculous to have ears on the side of your head. It certainly looks ridiculous. You ought to take a peek in the mirror someday and see for yourself. Oh, said the earthworm, why must you always be so rude and rambunctious? You ought to apologize to James at once. And we'll stop there for tonight. Love you.